I'm Zach Dabrowski, and this is my extra credit briefing. This is the surface analysis chart. There are 23 different pressure systems in the United States right now. Not going to talk about all of them, but in the southeast, you can see there are six high pressure systems between Mississippi, Tennessee, and South Carolina. And there's two low pressure systems mixed in with them too. There's a high pressure system north of us, and then in California's got two low pressure systems. And in New York, there's a high and low pressure system right on top of each other, right on the border of Pennsylvania also. This is the visible satellite chart for the United States right now. Not a lot of activity going on the East Coast. Speaking of clouds, once you get to the Midwest and the West Coast, you can see there's quite a few more clouds, such as the Four Corners area. Most of those four states are covered by clouds. The border between Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, there's quite a few clouds there. And then central and eastern Oregon, there's quite a few clouds over there also. This is the infrared satellite chart for the United States right now. Paints a little bit different picture than the visible one did. Off the coast of Georgia there's some pretty cold clouds there on the coast. Most of Mississippi is looking red or pink. Again, in eastern Louisiana, there's some more red down there. Through most of Arkansas and southern Missouri, there's some pretty cold clouds there. Then there looks like there's a line of pretty cold clouds from Wyoming along the Nebraska-South Dakota border. Then most of Arizona's got quite a few spots of some pretty cold clouds. And again, in that whole Four Corners area, it looks like there's some pretty cold clouds over there also. This is the water vapor chart for the United States, and it kind of shows what we were just talking about. Off the coast of Georgia, you can see there's lots of water vapor in those clouds. Same thing with Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana area. Again, on the South Dakota, Nebraska border and into Wyoming, there's some pretty high water content over there. And again, most of Four Corners, looks like there's a lot of water vapor in the sky over there. And the radar for the United States, you can see along the coast of Georgia, there's some light to moderate rain, along with in Mississippi and Louisiana, some more light to moderate rain. Light to moderate rain up in New York, Pennsylvania area, along the coast, along the border of South Dakota, Nebraska. There's some, looks like moderate to heavy rain. And then most of the Four Corners is scattered with light to moderate rain. This is the day one convective outlook for the United States. You see most of the country is covered in general thunder with spots of marginal along the Canadian border through Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and then some more marginal between Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, Utah, and Wyoming. And then you got a circle of marginal covering most of western Nebraska, and then inside of that there's another circle of a slight chance of convective activity. These are all the active sigmets right now. A lot of them are convective sigmets, basically in all the places I was talking about on the radar and the satellite charts of the United States. Here are the air mets for the United States right now. Off the west coast, covering California up into Oregon, you have IFR right off the coast. Above or surrounding Wisconsin, most of Minnesota, the UP, and parts of Michigan. Looks like there's some low turbulence from surface to 10,000 feet. From the coast, from Michigan upwards into Maine, you got IFR right off the coast. And then in a little bit part of Colorado, looks like there's moderate icing from 14 to 26,000 feet. These are the PIREPs in the United States right now. Not a whole lot going on in most of the country, but if you look down here above Atlanta in Georgia, there is a urgent PIREP for severe turbulence at 37,000 feet from a CRJ 900. And then over in Colorado, right here, there is a urgent PIREP from a Fairchild Dornier plane who said there was some low level wind shear, plus or minus 15 knots. And then in Central California, there's one more urgent PIREP for moderate to severe turbulence at 8,500, reported from a 182. This is the freezing level for the United States. Most of the country is 15 to 17,000 feet. But once you get into northern New York and then basically north of Michigan, Wisconsin, that kind of level, it gets up to 13 to 15. Very northern Minnesota, kind of northern Wisconsin, it goes from 9,000 to 11 and 11 to 13. And then in parts of California, it's actually above 17,000 feet. And then most of Oregon, there's a patch of 13 to 15,000 feet. This is the latest METAR data for our area. Once again, you can't really read the Grand Forks METAR, but it says 010 at 7 knots for wind at 10 statute mile visibility and few clouds at 5,500. This is the visible satellite for our area. You can see east of Grand Forks, there is few clouds from us, Thief to Bemidji. Between Dickinson and Bismarck, looks like there's some few clouds down there. And then from Bismarck to Jamestown, there's some few clouds there. But through most of the state, it's looking like some pretty clear skies. And the radar for our area, looks like there's nothing in Grand Forks or North Dakota. But if you look in South Dakota, there's a couple patches of rain kind of in south central South Dakota. But then once you get southwest of South Dakota, it looks like there's a pretty decent sized storm down there with some heavy rain. And there is one PIREP over North Dakota, a 777 reported light turbulence at 35,000 feet. We're going to start by looking at the 12-hour significant weather prognostic chart. On the left, it looks like there's IFR conditions all up and down the west coast with a little spot of marginal in Southern California. Another spot of marginal conditions in Wyoming, South Dakota, Nebraska, Colorado. On the border of Oklahoma, Nebraska, or Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas is not a spot of marginal. And then eastern Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. Then northwards, there's a whole line of marginal conditions with 2 spots of IFR in Ohio and Georgia, South North Carolina area. And then New Hampshire, northwards, covering all of Maine. Looks like there's more IFR conditions. And if you look on the right side, and the low-level significant weather prognostic chart for the 24-hour chart, still up and down the west coast, there's all IFR conditions. And then in Southern California, there's another spot of marginal. That hasn't really changed. But looking at the rest of the country, looking a little bit better with only a couple spots of marginal in Nebraska and the Kansas, Oklahoma border. Southern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, a spot of marginal. And then the marginal that was originally covering the entire East Coast kind of moved northwards to only cover West Virginia northwards. And then off the coast of Maine and Massachusetts, that IFR is still there. And this is the high-level prognostic chart. You can see the jet stream is pretty broken up. Not a whole lot of the jet stream is over the United States, except for a little part kind of around Chicago. Looks like 100 knots between, or at flight level 390. Then 110 knots going from New York northwards at 4,000 or 40,000 feet. Some isolated embedded cumulonimbus at 39,000 feet in the northwest part of the country. The bottoms are below 25,000 feet. And again, east of LA down into Mexico, more isolated embedded cumulonimbus. Tops 51, bottoms below 25. Then most of the southwest, there's isolated embedded cumulus. Again, tops 51, bottoms below 25. And most of the east coast, there's isolated embedded cumulonimbus clouds at 42,000 feet to below 25,000 feet. High part of the troposphere is southwest of the United States at 53,000 feet. And the lowest part is way north of New York up into Canada at 31,000 feet. Day 2 categorical outlook for convective activity. Once again, most of the East Coast is under general thunder, and then Pennsylvania northward, it's marginal convective activity. And it looks like in Vermont, New Hampshire, little parts of Maine and Massachusetts, there's a slight chance for convective activity. And there's a spot of marginal activity between from southwest South Dakota, northeast Wyoming, through most of Nebraska and Kansas, and the northeastern part of Colorado. Other than that, not a whole lot going on. Here's the TAF for Grand Forks. Basically, pretty good weather, variable 5 knots, greater than 6 mile statute visibility, and probably a few clouds at 4,000. Here's winds aloft for Grand Forks. Just for reference, the Highest winds are at 39,000 feet at the end there, 310 at 53 knots, and negative 53 degrees Celsius.